Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm Joke Rogers here in Lagos. We begin today with stories and happenings that made headlines all over Africa over the weekend.
On Saturday, the Ethiopian government and Tigrayan forces signed an agreement laying out a roadmap for implementation of a peace deal that both sides signed in South Africa this month. Representatives from the Ethiopian government and the Tigray People's Liberation Front, TPLF, have been meeting in Nairobi since November the 7th to reach agreement on various aspects related to implementation of a peace pact signed in Pretoria. Saturday's deal is expected to boost efforts by the African Union mediators to try to resolve a 2-year conflict that has killed thousands and displaced millions of people in the Horn of Africa. Both sides say they are committed to the declaration, saying it is the only way to restore peace and stability.
We will fully dedicate ourselves to implement the Pretoria Agreement and this declaration.
The mediators say the deal will facilitate unhindered humanitarian access, provide security guarantees to humanitarian workers, ensure the protection of civilians, and ensure a joint committee to oversee implementation of the agreement. Still on Saturday, the inaugural Kenya contingent under the East African Community Regional Force arrived in the Democratic Republic of Congo's city of Goma.
The reason why we are here,
Speaking to journalists at the airport, Kenyan Commander Dennis Obiero says their mission is to bring security within the region.
The reason why we are here because of the East African head of states conclave, of which they approved the need for us to deploy the East African Regional Force here in Eastern DRC. And the reason why we are here is under the mandate. The mandate is, number one, is to conduct offensive operations or decisive operation together with the FRDC in support, that is. And secondly, assist in the DDR process for the purpose of disarmament. And again, we have seen the issues of insecurity. Insecurity is something that breaks up the social fabric and requires assistance to the local police. And therefore, we'll be working also together with the humanitarian agencies towards realization of peace and stability within Goma.
Kenya's National Assembly approved the deployment of troops in order to enforce peace, unlike the United Nations peacekeeping missions, which have been unsuccessful in keeping the region secure. Kenya has deployed hundreds of troops to work alongside the Congolese army in agreement with the East African community after a summit held in June in Nairobi. The regional force will be led by a Kenyan commander and has 2 battalions from Uganda, 2 from Burundi, and 1 from South Sudan. And finally, 19 people were killed and 6 others injured when a bus fell into a canal in northern Egypt on Saturday. According to security forces, the bus was carrying some 35 people when it derailed on a highway and fell into Mansouriya Canal in Aga town in the northern governorate of Dakalia.
The Nigerian military has released names of 19 wanted terrorists and is offering a reward of 5 million naira for any person who brings information leading to the arrest of any of the terrorists. Some of the names on the list released by the Director of Defense Information include Sani Dangote from Zamfara, Bello Turji Guda, Leko Dogo Nahali, and Ngona Sokoto. Others are Nasanda, also from Zamfara, Isiya Kwashen Garwa from Katsina, Ali Kachala, a.k.a. Ali Kwaje, also from Zamfara State. Also, Abu Rade and Danda were also on that list, and they're both from Katsina State. You can get the full list of the names released by the military on our website, channelstv.com. Move on into other stories. The UN mission in Mali has documented 375 violations and abuses of human rights and international humanitarian law, which represents a 20% decrease compared to the previous quarterly report. Briefing journalist Stephanie Tremblay, an associate spokesperson for the Secretary General, says the numbers are part of MINUSMA's report on trends of violations and abuses of human rights and international humanitarian law, which covers the period from July 1 to September 30th, 2022.
UN mission in Mali, MINUSMA, has issued its report on trends of violations and abuses of human rights and international humanitarian law, which covers the period from July to September of this year. During this period, the mission documented 375 violations and abuses of human rights and international humanitarian law, which represents in total 243 civilians were killed, 77 injured, and 55 were abducted or missing. 10% of them were women and 1% children, according to the data documented by the mission. Extremist groups continued to be the main perpetrators of violations. The UN mission welcomes the efforts made by the Malian authorities to combat impunity, including the announcement of the opening of investigations into allegations of violations attributed to the Malian Defense and Security Forces. The mission continues to actively support national efforts to ensure greater respect for human rights and to end impunity, including through training and capacity building.
Tanzania's President Samia Suluhu is to hold an emergency cabinet meeting to discuss a recent airplane crash that killed 19 people. Technical advisors from aircraft manufacturer ATR are already in the town to investigate the crash. French civil aviation safety investigation experts have also been deployed to the area, as well as Tanzanian experts who are conducting an independent investigation. The aircraft was operated by Precision Air, Tanzania's largest privately owned passenger airplane. It has been operating on the Dar es Salaam-Bukoba route since 1994. The passenger plane crashed into Lake Victoria on November the 6th as it attempted to land in the lakeside town of Bukoba. Prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, the ICC, Karim Khan, says he believes the possibility of a peace in Libya, despite a lack of belief in the delivery of justice, is not mission impossible. Mr. Khan was addressing the UN Secretary Council from Libya, the first time ever a prosecutor of the ICC has addressed the UNSC from Libyan soil. It's also the first time that the prosecutor of the ICC has been to Libya in a decade.
Today is important because it's the first time that a prosecutor of the International Criminal Court has addressed this council from the soil of Libya. And it is also the first time the prosecutor of the ICC has been to Libya in a decade. There is fatigue in Libya. There is this sentiment that we've heard it all before. What is the international community doing? What are you at the ICC doing? We talk about justice, but we don't see it and we don't feel it. And one survivor said, we keep hearing about justice. We keep hearing about the ICC. Where are the results? We need these promises. We can't allow a sentiment to become pervasive that impunity is inevitable.
We welcome that concrete action has been taken in cooperation with relevant national authorities, leading to an acceleration of evidence collection, the arrest of suspects, and a significant deepening of engagement with affected communities, victims, survivor groups, and civil society organizations.
The World Food Programme says more than 1 million people have been impacted by an unprecedented multi-year flood event that's sweeping through South Sudan. This is exacerbating high levels of hunger caused by ongoing conflicts and the global food crisis. South Sudan is one of the most rapidly warming areas in the world, with temperatures increasing at 2.5 times the global average. The country is experiencing a fourth consecutive year of flooding. The country's wetlands, known as the Sud, have expanded threefold since 2019, now covering 10 to 15% of the country's land area.
More than 1 million people in South Sudan have been affected by extreme flooding. The surface area of land permanently submerged underwater has tripled, and an already dire food security situation exacerbated, leaving 2.9 million people at risk of starvation. Vulnerable communities here have done very little to contribute to climate change, living largely off of the land and without polluting technology. Now, it's vital that the international community comes together to support the South Sudanese to build resilience against increasingly severe climate shocks and a future free from the threat of famine.
Several people have been injured during a fresh protest on Sunday in the self-declared Republic of Somaliland over the extension of President Mose Bihi Abdi's term by 2 years. The protests come after the opposition Wadani and USID parties declared the government illegitimate. President Bihi's first term in office was due to end on Sunday, but lawmakers last month extended it by 2 years. This was after the Electoral Commission called for a delay in the elections due to financial and technical constraints. The president was first elected in November 2017. However, the opposition parties say they no longer recognize him as president. The tensions over the president's term threatens to undermine relative stability in Somaliland, which declared independence from the rest of Somalia in 1991. And South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa says he will step aside if charged over an alleged cover-up of a robbery at his private farm. And that's according to the spokesman of the president. Vincent Magwenya says should the president be charged, he will gladly step aside. He adds that as things stand, there are no criminal charges against the president. What you have is a series of investigations that he's fully cooperating with, and he will continue to do so. The controversy surrounds the robbery at Pala Farm back in February 2020 and the alleged aftermath. The president is accused of kidnapping, bribery, and acting unlawfully by allegedly authorizing the pursuit of the suspects who stole an estimated $4 million from his farm. He has, however, denied any wrongdoing. We'll get more on that after the break. Plus, countdown to World Cup. Senegalese national football team arrives Qatar as national football fans root for African teams even as the countdown begins. Details in a moment. Welcome back to the program. Let's get more on the alleged cover-up involving the South Africa president, Cyril Ramaphosa. Our South Africa Bureau Chief, Betty Dibia, joins us now for more on this. Hello, Betty. Firstly, I can see you. Firstly, help us understand what led to the spokesperson making these remarks about the president stepping down if he is criminally charged.
Well, if you've been following, you'll recall that in June this year, the former spy chief Arthur Fraser had filed a criminal complaint asking the president to put the nation into confidence and tell them about the burglary at his farm in Parapara. Parapara is in Limpopo, where the president is from. He has a game farm there. And allegedly, about $4 million was allegedly stolen from there in hard currency. And of course, that raises a lot of questions. The president hasn't exactly, answered straight. All he's saying is that he didn't steal funds. But, having currency of that amount, there is a process, even for regular people, not to talk of a public official, having that kind of money in his home or or a place that he has. In this case, his game farm in Limpopo province. So a lot has been said. A lot of investigations are ongoing on several fronts. The South Africa Reserve Bank, the parliamentary committee, looking now to see if the president has done anything that will warrant him being impeached. So many things are being said. The president has acknowledged that there was a burglary. We understand that the chief culprit, or alleged chief culprit in this matter, has links to Namibia. And Namibia, someone is just not saying the truth. Namibia is saying they've reached out to South Africa for help in bringing him to question or to get answers from him over other matters as well. South Africa is saying Namibia didn't reach out. So no one knows who is saying the truth. But what many people believe is that their attempts were a cover-up. And the president is not looking good in all of this. So his spokesperson, Vincent Magwenya, speaking on Sunday at a briefing with the media, I'm sure has been asked that question many times. That's why he said the president will gladly step aside if criminally charged. But what he added again was that seems highly unlikely. You know, still maintaining the stand that the president is saying he hasn't done anything wrong. Many things. There is a recording that one of the local media houses got of the alleged chief culprit here saying they stole about $800,000 US. No one has or is supposed to have that amount of money in cash. And we understand that the money was tucked into furniture, and a domestic helper found that and told someone who told someone else, and then they came for to steal what they did. So there's a lot being said. The president brushed all these things aside at the National Executive Committee meeting, which was held on Sunday as well, or concluded on Sunday. He addressed them. He didn't mention that. He just talked about, the ANC General Congress is in December, where he may be re-elected as the president of the party, and probably be the president again during elections in 2024. But he didn't address it, and we understand there are party rivals within the ANC asking him questions, telling him to give straighter answers regarding this. But the president is not exactly speaking, but he's answered the parliamentary committee, and he's maintaining that he's innocent. He hasn't done anything wrong. He didn't kidnap anyone. He didn't do anything against the law, but he acknowledged the burglary.
Right, Betty, so the president is accused of serious crimes here, kidnapping, bribery, and acting unlawfully, but he denies any wrongdoing, as you've said. How are South Africans reacting to this, and how soon do you think this can be cleared up?
How soon it can be cleared up, we don't exactly know. We'll just have to wait for all the investigations that the president keeps talking about. But as I said earlier, he's admitted the burglary, but any other thing that you listed just now, he said he's not guilty of any of those. So we will have to wait for the investigations as the president or the presidency as well that keeps saying that if he's found wanting, he may step aside. Even the ANC has rules that if someone is criminally charged, they may have to step down. But the president has managed to buy some time with the not really saying anything, and people are waiting. And all that he said, that he's not guilty of any wrongdoing, many people are taking it with a pinch of salt, and they're hoping that the man who came to power, on the platform of coming to fight against the crimes and state capture, that had gripped the state in years past, they're hoping he's cleaner than those that came before, and no one is really getting straight answers, and they're hoping they will get answers. They are demanding straight answers from the president. We're watching to see where that will lead, but we know that it's going to play a huge part. It will be a major factor in the ANC Congress coming up in December, where those who oppose him will use that stick to beat him. Whether they will succeed is another matter. But, we know that there are factions within the ANC, and those who don't exactly support him are there. And we hope for the best, at least in the interest of the people.
Yeah, certainly. Thank you so much for a wrap on that. Our South Africa Bureau Chief, Betty Libya, speaking to us on those alleged criminal allegations against President Cyril Ramaphosa. Let's move on to other stories. Climate activist Vanessa Nakate was amongst the hundreds of young campaigners who gathered and marched at COP27 in Egypt, calling for leaders to act on their pledges to benefit those affected by the consequences of climate change. Speaking on the sideline of Fridays for Future protest, 25-year-old Nakate said she has witnessed firsthand the damage and devastation climate change has caused in her country, Uganda. Nakate, who was recently named UN Children UNICEF's Goodwill Ambassador, says the inclusion of youth as official observers at COP for the first time in history is a monumental achievement.
From Uganda. Uganda is one of the countries that is on the front lines of the climate crisis, and just this year we saw heavy rainfall affect the region of Mbale and leading to the death of over 20 people and many more people displaced and their property and their farms destroyed as well. We saw the food crisis in Karamoja region, which left about 500,000 people struggling to find food to eat. So I come from a community that is on the front lines of the climate crisis, and the climate crisis looks like landslides and flooding and droughts in some parts of Uganda. So it's really important for me that I tell the experiences of what I see in my community, because when I speak up, I believe that we can get justice for the people that are suffering right now.
Elsewhere now, with the FIFA World Cup Qatar 2022 just days away, fans across the world are itching for the football's biggest carnival in the Middle East, and Kenyan fans are paying attention to teams from the African continent. The FIFA 2022 World Cup in Qatar is just days away from kickoff. Broadcasters estimate around 5 billion people worldwide will watch the latest edition of World Football's showpiece. In Kenya, viewing points have already been set around the country to ensure millions get to watch the best players compete at the grandest stage. Inside a popular sports pub in the capital, Nairobi, packed full of football fans watching games, several sports reporters shared their anticipation of the World Cup.
I mean, the World Cup is a really big thing. It's a good thing to Africans and to everyone in the world. We look forward to the games. It happens once in 4 years, and we have a chance to watch the big players. I mean, Kenya may not be going to the World Cup. We're looking forward to watching Senegal, Morocco, Tunisia, Ghana, and Cameroon. We are still hoping that one of the African nations can probably do well in the World Cup. But I think the excitement, the build-up, the pomp and color, the fans, they're the things that make the World Cup special.
Senegal, I feel, overall has a very good chemistry as a team. I mean, they are the African champions to start with. They have a good goalkeeper. They have a good defense. They have a good midfield. They have a good attack. So I think for them, in Africa, I expect them to go farthest. Cameroon always does kind of well. I mean, there's some few World Cups they have done terribly, but I have a feel they also look like a very good team for me. Then, of course, we have the North African teams, likes of Tunisia. They have always been featuring there. Yeah, some of the teams that I'm looking forward to seeing. Obviously, Ghana because of, Thomas Partey. And yeah, but I think for me, Senegal, Cameroon is the two teams that I'm looking forward to watching.
As a football fan, I think I'm looking forward to watching all these new youngsters that are obviously going to get an opportunity at the World Cup. I mean, I'm looking at probably Saliba might be going for France. I'm looking at the likes of maybe Tariq Lamptey at Ghana. Salisu plays for Southampton as well. I'm very Ghana inclined. I think they're a really, really good team.
Well, one other team fans are looking forward to see is Senegal, and their World Cup squad have arrived in Qatar in the early hours of Monday, seemingly yet without injured star player Sadio Mane, who is likely to undergo further medical tests with his German club Bayern Munich. Chelsea duo goalkeeper Edouard Mendy and defender Kalidou Koulibaly joined other members of the 26-man squad as they arrived overnight. Mane will undergo further medical checks, as reported earlier, in Munich in a week to monitor his recovery from an injury that could rule him out of the entire World Cup, despite him being named in his country's squad on Friday. Senegal, Africa Cup of Nations champions face Netherlands on November 21st in their opening Group A match before taking on hosts Qatar and Ecuador. Senegal coach Aliou Cissé says that he's confident Mane could recover in time to play at the tournament. Well, all the best to all those African teams. That's it on Network Africa. I'm Jokia Rogers. Bye for now.